Hey guys, Adriana with Realty Executives. This is a step-by-step approach to purchasing your house, whether or not you are a brand new first-time home buyer or a buyer buying for a second time. This is not something that you typically do on a regular basis. So I wanted to explain some of the contracts, some of the documentation that you will be receiving throughout the transaction, just so that you have a small idea when you receive these. A lot of us as realtors, we're out and about showing you all the time or negotiating for you. So all of the background stuff gets done by a transaction manager. So sometimes we don't get the opportunity to explain these documents to you because our transaction manager sends them for us. So I wanted to do that beforehand so that you have some sort of idea of what's going on and what it is that you are receiving, because you might receive different things based on the type of contract that you are writing, and also based on the type of loan and based on the type of property. For example, a condo or a townhouse might have an HOA form attached, which means that it's in a homeowners association and it tells you what the costs are to transfer and a monthly fee and the HOA contact information, etc., etc. A manufacturer, for example, might come with a road maintenance agreement or a well agreement, depending on what portion it is in town. So there's a couple of documents that may accompany or may not accompany your transaction. So no transaction is equal, no interest rate is equal, no loan is equal. Everybody has a different situation. Everybody has a different type of income. Everybody's spouse has a different type of income. Everybody's credit is different. So no real estate transaction is the same. So I just wanted to explain to you a couple of the documents that you're going to be seeing, because I am actually going to break down this long video into smaller chunks of videos so that I can have these videos available to you for when I send out these documents. However, this really long one is going to be an introduction to what you guys will be seeing, just so that you guys are forewarned and aware. I'm not trying to scare you guys. I'm not trying to say that things are going to go wrong. I just want you to be aware and familiar, because I find that a lot of my clients are not reading the contract. First and foremost, in all of the contracts, some of the bigger lines in every single contract says, read the entire contract. Okay, I do real estate in both the Valley and in Tucson. I actually live in Tucson. However, I do some real estate up in the Valley. So some of my contracts may differ a little bit. And you're going to notice right here where I'm creating, some of them say ARMLS. That means that it is contracts up in the Valley and down in Douglas, or possibly Nogales, anywhere where it is southeastern Arizona. And then I've got the TAR, which is its own. It's the MLS in Tucson. So I'm going to do a TAR offer right now, just so that you can see what type of documents you guys are going to be receiving. One of the documents that you will be receiving, where we're going to be asking you to sign the last page, is buyer's advisory. I have said this multiple times that I feel like the buyer advisory is an underutilized asset that you guys have. This, to ensure that you have the most up-to-date buyer advisory, you can go to aaronline.com and make sure that you have like the latest and greatest links. But basically why I love this is because it breaks down every portion of the transaction for you. Like I said, I feel like this is very underutilized, but it explains so many things that I feel like this is something that I should emphasize and ask you to focus on, because during your search, there's going to be a couple of questions that pop up that I cannot answer. One of those questions, for example, is what's the best area in town? Or what is a ghetto area in town? Or I don't want to live close to a church, or I do want to live close to a church. I have to abide by federal housing regulations, so I'm not supposed to be saying those things to you. This is something that you're supposed to be investigating on your own, be it with within the neighborhood, be it with some friends or family. and or doing a little bit of research online. There's a lot of really nice links to the buyer advisory. I highly recommend reading through this on your own time, or reaching out to me and asking any pertinent questions. I want you to pay attention to the most common documents a buyer should review. Obviously, the purchase contract, which I'm going to go over, the MLS printout, which you will be receiving through email on a regular basis whenever I send out homes to you, a public report if that is pertinent to the property, a seller's property disclosure statement, that is something that I'm going to be going over, covenants, conditions, and restrictions if you are living in an HOA or not. The property, the land might have some restrictions of use, so that is a very important document. I have several covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and the amount of pages can drastically vary. They can definitely change from time to time. For example, I'm going to show you, I think that I have some CCNRs right here, but I was saving some CCNRs to create a video about horse and animal property. And I wanted to show everybody that depending on the type of CCNRs, this can be 100 pages or it can be 4 pages long, right? So I'm going to be creating a video on CCNRs and why I believe it is very important that you pay attention to this document. You receive this through the title company. Sometimes the title company or your escrow officer sends it to us directly, and we email it to you. A lot of times, and I'm going to say this, I hope I'm not speaking for other agents, but a lot of times this is actually your homework. It is your responsibility to review this document. Sometimes we make the mistake of reviewing or reading or digesting these for you, breaking it down into smaller chunks. But this is actually your responsibility, because if we explain these, it becomes a liability to us. However, it is something that is very, very important that you guys should be looking at. Another thing to be looking out for is homeowners association and HOA disclosures, community facilities district, the title report, and the title commitment. I will do another video on that as well. All of the loan information and documents you should be paying attention to. I do not explain those directly to you. Your lender shall do that. The home warranty policy and the different types of policies that there are available. An affidavit of disclosure if you are in an unincorporated area of town. Lead-based paint, so anything before 1978 gets a lead-based paint disclosure form. The professional inspection report, county assessor's tax records, termite or other wood-destroying insects and organisms, and foreign investment real property tax. So, for example, let's just say that you are not American and that you're going to be moving back to Europe or Canada or Mexico or wherever it may be, and the intention is to sell your property to take that money back to your country. You may be having to pay what we call a foreign investment real property tax. So I will elaborate further on that if it is pertinent to your transaction. So like I said, I'm going to be breaking this document down into smaller chunks to see if it is pertinent to your transaction. That way you guys are more aware and I can tailor this a little bit better to you. Common physical conditions of the property, what you should be investigating during your inspection period. When is your inspection period? All of the conditions that can affect the area surrounding the property, other methods to getting information about a property, and resources. I love this document, like I said, because you know, as a buyer, a lot of people go through a lot of anxiety. It is a big purchase, it's a big decision. So people can go back and forth as to what they want, what they don't want. And also, you might be making decisions based on availability. So this is a great document. If you can't sleep at 2 a.m. because you have a question and want to reach out, sometimes this is your best resource. Maybe you can find the answer to your questions, especially here in Arizona. This is an Arizona document, and these are Arizona websites. So anything related to Arizona, you can try to find here. So let's just say that you have a daughter and that you want to know if there is a sex offender somewhere close to your property. You would go all the way down to the criminal area, and this would provide you with a link to the websites where you can do all of that research, right? Or you also may want to know how the criminal activity is in Tucson. There are a lot of websites that can help you do that sort of research, especially if you are from out of town. So I hope that this I hope that you pay attention to this document, because we do have you sign it, and we do have you um sign the last page where you are acknowledging that you received this and that it was explained to you. So basically, a lot of people, when they receive everything through e-sign, it's so easy to just click and not read. That is something that I've always said is a no, 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 no. Read everything that you get, guys. This will avoid any problems down the line, or any misinterpretations or any miscommunication down the line, because everything is in writing. So that's one of the documents that you're going to be receiving. Another one of the documents that you're going to be receiving is a market conditions advisory. Basically, there is no way for us as realtors to predict if the market is going to go up or is it going to go down, right? A lot of people are asking me currently because of COVID. This is 2020. I mean, you might be seeing this video further on, but this is 2020. A lot of people are asking me if, because of COVID, the house prices are going down. No, at this moment, they are not going down. There's no way to predict that the housing market is going to go down. On the contrary, right now, because people assume that money is cheap, a lot more people are applying to purchase a home. Therefore, there's a lot more buyers. Therefore, there is a lot less homes on the market, which means that there is more demand. And just like the law of demand says, when there's more demand, prices go up. So at this point of time, um, average prices in Tucson were $250,000. There is not a lot of inventory at that price point. So if you qualify for $250,000 or less, you're gonna have to come up with a really creative offer to be able to win that offer. And or you might have to be looking or being a little bit more flexible as to the age of the property, the size of the yard, the size of the property, or you might have to be a little bit more flexible as to the location of the property. Maybe you need a longer commute. Maybe you can find something better, which is larger in the outskirts of town. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to make something work for you guys. Anyways, I went off tangent. This is the market conditions advisory. We're gonna have you sign this because there's no way for us to predict how the market's going to do tomorrow. We don't know if the market's going to crash tomorrow, and real estate is cyclical, so you will receive that. On-site wastewater treatment. So let's just say that you buy a property that is in the outskirts of town, or even in town, and it has a lot of land, but it's not connected to the sewer. It might have a septic. So what you would be receiving is an on-site wastewater facility treatment, basically telling you that it is the seller's responsibility at their expense within 6 months and prior to the close of escrow, to get the septic inspected by an inspector, and to pump the system. And it gives you the option, which should be part of the negotiation. It gives you the option to, depending on how much you're offering, it gives you the option to either have the seller pay for the transfer, the buyer, or have both of them split the cost. At the end of the day, it depends on the negotiation and it depends on the type of market, what we're going to be selecting. But this is an addendum for properties that have a septic. Not all properties are going to get it, so don't worry about it if you don't get it. A real estate agency disclosure and election form is usually telling you how we represent you, if we are a buyer's broker, a seller's broker, or if we're representing both parties. Usually, if you are a buyer, we're going to be selecting that we can show buyer properties and that we can represent the buyer, right? So all of these would be selected. We would have you sign this. This tells you that we owe you fiduciary duties and how we are supposed to act as your representative. Again, as with all forms, please read it. And if you have any questions, always contact us. So we're going to go to the mold disclosure. when you place an offer and you start your inspection period, we always recommend that you get a mold inspection, especially if you are allergic to mold. There are three types of mold that can be potentially dangerous, and sometimes mold is not visible, right? Sometimes we can't readily see it, and as your agents, we are not an expert in mold. That's why we recommend that you get an inspection. So you will get a mold disclosure addendum recommending again that you get that inspection so that at the end of the day, there are no disputes as to, oh, we found mold, after the fact. Well, we want to return the house there. This is not retail. Houses have no return. Disclosure regarding vicinities of airports. There are a couple of airports down here in Tucson. This is a disclosure telling you if you are close to an airport and how it might affect you. So you might hear a little bit of noise. You might, actually, you might be close to an airport, so you might hear a lot of noise. But basically, we're letting you know that you are in the vicinity of an airport and what type of airport it is and which one. You may receive that depending if you are in close proximity to an airport. This is something that you will receive not only from us as realtors, but you will probably see this on the title company's signature a lot. The Every broker might have a different type of form. I've done some deals with Coldwell Bankers, and they have a different form for their wire fraud advisory. So you might see this form in different types of ways. But basically what this is saying is do not trust emails containing wire instructions, do not trust emails seeking personal or financial information, and you need to trust your source of information. I'd like to tell you from the get-go that the title companies usually send encrypted messages. It might seem like a little bit of a hassle at first because you have to create passwords and you can't always log in easily like we do on our email on a regular basis. However, that is protecting all of your information, and everything that they send is protected and encrypted that way. Always know your title company and your title company's name, your escrow officer's name, obviously our name. My name is Adriana. Obviously, know who the parties to the transaction are before you share any personal information. Most of the time, title companies, when they reach out to you for a social security number, they will only ask for the last four digits of your ID, etc., etc., etc. So watch out for who asks you for any wire instructions. So we're going to be sending you that. If the house has any potential of lead-based paint, as you can see, there is a lead-based paint addendum. And you're going to see this on the contract as well. Anything built prior to 1978 is going to come with this. So I'm going to be sending you a packet that's going to tell you what to look out for and why lead-based paint is dangerous. So those are some of the forms that you might receive accompanying your purchase agreement. The most important document to know and to read, if you read any of these documents, read the purchase agreement. I can't say this enough. I cannot say this enough. And this is why it has this paper. This is not a game. Real estate is not playing wife and husband. No, it's not a game. This is a legally binding agreement. In other states, you have to go through a real estate agent and an attorney. People place more value on attorneys because they're paying attorneys $250, $300 per hour. People tend to not listen or pay a lot of attention to real estate agents because our work is free, which is not necessarily free. We get paid at the close of escrow, but people value information more when they actually pay for it up front. So what I'm trying to get at is it states this in the first page of your purchase agreement, and it's saying, attention buyer, you're entering into a legally binding agreement. Yes, this is a legally binding agreement. If you breach this contract, you could, be bound legally. Okay, read the entire contract before signing it. Review the residential seller's property disclosure statement. Review the inspection paragraph. Confirm your ability to obtain insurance and insurability of the property. Apply for your home loan now. Read the commitment within 5 days of receipt. read the CCNRs and all other governing documents within 5 days of receipt, conduct a thorough pre-closing walkthrough. Okay, a warning, wire transfer fraud. We already spoke about this form, so we're gonna move forward to the purchase contract. And I'm gonna point out, I'm gonna repeat this again over and over. Read the purchase contract. You may be signing something that if I'm not your real estate agent, another agent may not be explaining to you. So I highly recommend that you read the purchase because I know, and I've been told by other agents that I sometimes shoot myself in my own foot because I overtell and overeducate. However, I do not believe that that is the case. I think that we should, the more we tell you, the more you will understand, and the less problems we will have throughout the transaction. I am very blunt. I am very straightforward. So hopefully, this is the type of education you want from your real estate agent, and hopefully this is something that you can manage and handle, because I know a lot of people want to be sweet talked, and and maybe that's not me, but I am part of a team. I have agents that are great at that type of communication, and it's just me. I am very upfront and very educational. So we're gonna go through the purchase contract. Obviously, for the first page, I would write who the buyer is, who the seller is, the premises address, city, county, zip code, legal description. Right here, we're going to be writing down the full price that you guys are willing to offer. How much money are you going to be putting down as earnest? And what is earnest money, guys? What is earnest money? Earnest money is mainly 1% of the purchase price that you should be putting as a good faith. Basically, you're doing a deposit, right? And that's a good faith effort that you're going to do anything and everything to qualify to purchase this house. That is something that you can lose in several portions of the transaction, and I will explain that further. So keep in mind, guys, earnest money is money that you deposit that makes that the higher it is, the stronger your offer is. However, this is money that you could possibly lose if you actually breach the contract. Okay. Usually on these lines down here, we write how much we're going to borrow, what type of loan it is, and any additional terms. I usually use a personal check to deposit that earnest money to the escrow company, and I select these. And or if we have an all cash sale, guys, we need a letter of credit or a source of funds from financial institution. I've worked with I've put listings on the market, and I've received proof of funds from agents where their client is technically grabbing their phone, taking a picture of their computer screen. And you guys have to realize this, that when you take a picture of the computer screen, a lot of the stuff gets really blurred out. We need a letter, or we need a bank statement with your name attached to the bank account that proves that you are the person that has this money, right? I've gotten a lot of proof of income when a person takes a picture of the bank statement, but then is not the same name as the person that's buying the property. It's supposedly the spouse, et cetera, et cetera. We need proof of that. Close of escrow. The close of escrow is the day that you're going to be receiving the keys to your house. Okay. Here in real estate, there are no business days. So if we say that we're going to close escrow in 30 days, we count weekends and we count holidays. Keep that in mind, guys. Time is of the essence. That is very, very, very important. There's no days where you can, oh my God, I'm going to sit there and think about it for 2 days. Time is of the essence when it comes to a real estate transaction, and the longer you take to think about things, the higher the possibility that you can lose the house. So keep that in mind. Possession, it should, anything and everything should be down in writing as to when you're going to occupy the property. And then incorporate it depending on the type of offer that you are making and the type of property that we're making. If there's anything required, we're going to be selecting. For example, if you're in a townhouse, an HOA will definitely be attached. If you are in a property that has a septic, the on-site water treatment will definitely be attached. And depending on other things for the sale, some other items may be attached. For example, let's just say that you have to sell the property, your own property, before you can purchase this property. We would be doing a buyer contingency. This other section talks about all the fixtures and personal property. Trust me when I say that some people fight over curtains, people fight over chandeliers, people fight over mirrors, people fight over some things that made them make the decision to purchase the property. So read this section, especially if you are a seller. Read this section because all of these things should convey with the property. Unless you want to remove them, we have to disclose that. Obviously, I have washer dryer selected, but that might not be the case on your loan. Section 2 is about the financing. We need a pre-qualification. You cannot place an offer to a property if you haven't been pre-qualified by a lender. I mean, that's definitely a no-no. If any realtor places an offer for you and you have not been pre-qualified, they are brand new and have no idea what they're doing. There are loan contingencies. You have 3 opportunities to cancel the contract legally, okay, and get your earnest money back. One of the opportunities is if you don't like the inspection period. Another one of the opportunities is if the property does not appraise. And 3, if the financing does not go through. So be very, very diligent with your lender. Give them all the documentation that they require fast. I would go as far as to say, gather all of your documents before you've been talking to them. Usually they ask for a couple of years of tax returns. Sometimes they ask for your retirement accounts. And if you have additional sources of income, or maybe some retirement funds or Social Security, there are a lot of ways to have income that I might not be mentioning right now, that your lender is the one that's going to point those out to you. So always apply for a loan before you start looking for property, because you might think that you qualify for a $230,000 house or may be comfortable with that type of payment, but you might only qualify for a $170,000 house, and then feel a little bit disappointed with the type of properties that are available. So always start with the loan first. And I recently had this happen where the buyer actually spent their down payment money, so they did not qualify for the loan. They lost their earnest money. So read these contingencies, because the contingencies are your opportunity to walk away from the contract legally. Okay, so be very diligent. Don't go buy a car right before you're buying a house, etc., etc. This is very important to read the financing portion of the purchase agreement. Lock in your interest rate as soon as possible. We usually, as your realtors, send all of the purchase agreements to your lender. So we ask you for that information so that we have it on handy, and their phone number and all of the above. Apply for your loan and be aware of the loan processing during escrow. I've been noticing that a lot of lenders are still sending really nice videos where they're actually explaining the whole process of the loan. I absolutely love that. Hopefully your lender has that. If not, I can recommend you to a lender that does. Be aware of the type of financing that you guys have. I think this is a really easy thing to overlook for a lot of new buyers. They're not aware of what type of financing they have. It can be a conventional, which means that you're going to be putting a heftier down payment down, an FHA, which means that you may or may not be doing any down payment. VA definitely should be zero out-of-pocket costs. USDA is something similar. Assumption or a seller carryback, which means that you might be paying higher interest rates. So pay attention to all of this stuff, and usually on your pre-qualification, this will tell you what it is. Seller concessions. Most of the time, the conversation between your lender and your lender tells me what type of seller concessions you will need, and if it is a percentage. And this will vary depending on the type of loan that you have and if you have any down payment assistance. Currently, there are a couple of down payment assistance programs. However, with everything that's going on with COVID, what could be happening is maybe they're not readily available. Maybe they are, not moving fast enough, so they need a longer closing date, or maybe they are not getting approved at all. Okay, so we need to have that conversation with your lender. Any changes, if there's any changes to your income, you are to notify me and the seller and your lender as soon as possible, because that can change your ability to qualify for the loan. A lot of people wait because they are afraid, especially right now where there's been massive layoffs. A lot of people have waited until a week before the close of escrow, have been denied their loan, may have possibly lost their earnest money because of the fact that they didn't say anything beforehand. Appraisal contingency, we already talked about contingencies. Guys, a contingency, like I said, is an opportunity to back out legally from a contract, right? If the house is not worth what you're willing to pay and you do not have the cash to pay for the difference, and the seller is not willing to drop the price, you have the ability to walk away from the contract. You can, in that moment, cancel. The appraisal costs are usually done by the buyer, and usually they can be reimbursed towards the seller concessions. Title and escrow, depending on the listing. Sometimes the listing agents require a specific um, title company, and the reason being is because they may have pulled CCNRs, they may have done an early bird, they might have already had this contract, this property under contract, or it may be because of some legal aspect that they need to go through that specific title company. So if we use a specific title company, please be aware that Realty Executives is affiliated to Signature Title, and that they do earn on that. But basically, read these because it tells you what title investing is, how you're going to obtain title, and what the title commitment is, and whose responsibility. Obviously, the seller pays for this, so you're going to be receiving this document from the title company. So read through it. Like I said, additional instructions, tax prorations, you're going to be seeing these a lot. If there's any liens on the property, you're going to see this in all the tax paperwork. And disclosures. What is the seller's property disclosure statement? The seller, has to deliver to you either a notice that they're not going to give you a seller's property disclosure, or they're supposed to give you what they know is pertinent to the house, if they've done any repairs, what the utilities are, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to create a whole different video on seller property disclosures. Insurance claims history. This is a responsibility of the seller to call their insurance company and ask if anything has gone wrong with the property in the last 5 years, and we're supposed to receive this from them. We may or may not receive it, especially if it's an investment property that somebody bought to flip. I really do not understand why they don't want to provide that to us, but I do notice that there are a lot of listing agents that from the get-go disclose that they're not going to be providing that insurance claims history for us. Foreign sellers, we're talking again about the tax, the FERPTA tax, which means that if you're taking the money out of the US, you might be charged a 15% tax. Lead-based paint, I went over this document with you, affidavit of disclosure. I will go over that portion of it if it pertains to your house. It doesn't always pertain to your house, especially if it is within the city. Changes during escrow. If there's any changes in the property, the seller shall notify the buyer immediately. Warranties. Before, the seller had to warranty the property. So as of 2017, the seller no longer has to warranty any portion of the property. So all of it has to be, if anything is not functioning, everything has to be requested during the repairs. Due diligence. Here is another section of the contract that you should be reading. I repeat this, you should be reading. Inspection period is usually 10 days. The reason why I wrote 15 days on this particular one is because I was working on a property that is an unincorporated area of the city. So I needed to pull a lot more documentation and paperwork from title company. And additionally, sometimes inspectors do not go to rural areas, or it is more difficult to get them to go to rural areas. So keep this in mind. The usual is 10 days. You have 10 days to do all of your inspections. We help you out a bunch with this by setting up a couple of the inspections. But if you have additional inspections that you want us to conduct, you have to let us know. You have to investigate the square footage. That is your responsibility with destroying organisms, flood hazards, and you have to see if the property is insurable. Do you have a sewer, or are you connected to or do you have a septic? Is there a swimming pool? Right here in this section, you acknowledge that I, as a realtor, am not an inspector. I'm not licensed professional to tell you what is there and what is not. I am not licensed to tell you the square footage of the property. That is something that you should be investigating. We do a lot of this homework for you. However, you acknowledge that that you will be following up with somebody that is licensed and a professional. Inspection period. Notice this is something that we're going to talk about. It is the what we call the binzer. So after your inspections are said and done, you have an opportunity to try to negotiate repairs and or concessions towards the repairs. And they so basically what you do is you tell the seller what you disapprove, and they have an opportunity to respond to you within 5 days. Within those 5 days, they can get estimates and say, yes, we shall do it, no, we shall do it. And then you can opt to cancel the contract or to move forward. Verbal discussions will not extend any of these time periods. Everything has to be done in writing. Okay. If you fail as a buyer to give notice of disapproval when we create the binzer, that means that you are satisfied with moving forward with the property. Okay. So we got to be very diligent about that. Usually we like to ask for a home warranty, and usually the buyer orders it and we request that the seller pays it. There is no guarantee that the seller is going to accept paying for it, but it's part of the negotiation. Walkthrough, the seller is supposed to provide and they're supposed to provide us access to the property so that they can do the inspections and all of that other homework for you. The seller's responsibility regarding the inspections and walkthroughs. The seller shall make the premises available for inspections and walkthroughs upon reasonable notice by the buyer. Seller at seller's expense have all utilities on, including any propane, until COE to enable. I see on MLS details sometimes sellers do not have the utilities on, so they have to advertise that you have to turn them on. Again, we're on FERPTA. Remedies, guys. If you are in breach of contract, or if the seller is in breach of contract, there's an opportunity to reach out to them and tell them and let them know that they are in breach of contract and that they need to remedy that breach within 3 days. That gives you an opportunity to cancel the contract and receive your earnest money back. What constitutes a breach? So read all of this because this is very, very, very important. What constitutes a breach? I will definitely let you know if you're breaching a contract so that we can resolve the issue as soon as possible. One of the most common breach of contract is not depositing earnest money within a specific time frame. Usually the earnest money should be deposited within 24 hours unless you unless you got an accepted offer maybe Saturday night and the title company was closed Sunday morning, et cetera, right? So we will let you know when you are in breach of contract, and usually the other agent will also reach out. When you are signing this contract, you are agreeing to an alternative dispute resolution. So basically, if you have any disputes or claims arising out of this contract, you are agreeing that you are going to be using the realtor's resolution system, unless agreed otherwise. And so read this so that you know what that entails legally. You are recommended to seek legal advice if you have any questions regarding any of this. Additional terms and conditions. Here is a big section where we can write additional terms and conditions depending on whatever it may be. It really depends on the type of contract that we get. Risk of loss. If there's any loss or damage to the premises, this contract can get canceled. The seller, and the buyer can get their earnest money back depending on the type of damage, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, you guys give permission for the buyer and seller to advise the public, which means that we're going to put it on MLS that this property is under contract. All of this property is governed by Arizona law. Again, this is something very important. Time is of the essence. The parties acknowledge at this time of the essence is the performance of obligations described. Compensation. Seller and buyer acknowledge that broker shall be compensated for the services. Copies and counterparts. If you're signing electronically, everything counts as a copy. Days, all the days begin at 12 a.m. and end at 11:59 p.m. How do we calculate time periods? Like I said, I've said this a couple of times before. There are no business days. There are no holidays. That's how we calculate our time periods. So be very, very diligent on maintaining every um, time period. The entire agreement. So this purchase agreement plus all of the addenda constitute the entire agreement. Any subsequent offers the seller can accept. However, they have to do it contingent to the cancellation of this contract. Cancellation, any party who wishes to exercise their rights of cancellation as allowed herein may cancel this contract by delivering notice stating the reason for cancellation to the other party or escrow company. Cancellations can become immediately upon delivery of cancellation notice. Notice as otherwise provided, delivery of all notices and documentation required or permitted hereunder shall be in writing and deemed delivered and received when it is hand delivered, sent via fax, sent via email, and sent by overnight courier service, etc., etc. Again, big bold, you're releasing the broker, holding them harmless. Read this because you're going to have to sign it. In terms of acceptance, this is usually when we place an offer, we're giving them a time that they need to respond by. I like to use at least 24 hours so that we can get a fast response, unless they specify on their agent remarks that they need a little bit more time. Usually right here is who the brokers are. I am Adriana. Rebecca Crane is the team lead. With signature cells. Here's where the seller signs. And we are finally done with this long explanation of the purchase agreement. However, now you know, and you can go back and forth to this video if you want to see further explanations or if you have any questions. Again, read this document because there might be questions that pop up that you can just reach out to me and ask, hey, what is this? And it's going to be a lot easier for me to respond to that. Or you never know. I might have a particular video specifically for that section. Okay. So what is the Binzer? When we are after the inspection period, when you guys conduct all of your inspections, we're going to be providing a seller with something that we call a Binzer. What does that mean? That's an abbreviation for residential buyer inspection notice and seller's response. Basically, what you do is we write down what we do not accept from the property. This can be either an opportunity to cancel or an opportunity to ask the seller to make repairs. Guys, a lot of people get really scared about the repairs that are required, so they immediately cancel. I do not recommend that. I recommend always trying to negotiate some of the repairs done. You might find that the seller is willing to do those things, so you might be missing an opportunity if you decide to cancel just because the inspection seemed a little bit scary. I always recommend to try to negotiate repairs because you never know how the seller is going to react. The seller might be concerned for your safety or they might have the financial means to do any of those repairs, or they may understand that a lot of the repairs can be done through the close of escrow. So don't miss out on an opportunity and immediately cancel because you don't like inspections. At least give the seller an opportunity to do some of those repairs. You might have a meeting of the minds and be able to move forward with the property. After you write down what type of repairs you want, if it's not in an exaggerated manner and if you're not really listing the entire inspection report, the seller might agree to whatever you ask for, or they can possibly reject it, right? So they're going to tell you what they're going to be doing. They can say that they reject everything. They can say that they're going to do only a couple of the repairs, or they can agree to repair all of it, right? So that would be the ideal situation. There's 3 forms of responses that you may receive. This is going to be further down the line, probably 10, 12, 13, 15 days after your inspection period. This form you're not going to receive immediately, but keep that in the back of your mind because it's something you're going to be seeing eventually. And it's something that we're going to be discussing a little bit further. And last but not least, I do not have it in this specific folder, but one of the most important documents to look at is the seller's property disclosure statement. This is one of the most important documents that sometimes, like I mentioned before, some investors do not provide to you, but basically it is a disclosure about the property. The first page talks about, you know, the legal ownership, if it's rented or not, if they are a foreign investor, approximate year built, et cetera, et cetera. Then it goes on and it moves forward um, to anything that has to do with the property, like if there's an HOA, if they're aware of any tax liens, the type of zoning, building codes. Then it moves forward to building and safety information, if they've done any repairs, if there's any warranties of those repairs, if they've conducted, you know, any pest control, any plumbing changes, if there's a pool, et cetera, et cetera. Why the reason why I like this particular document is because a lot of sellers don't fill it out. It's not a contractual agreement. It's just a disclosure of what they know about the property. But the reason why I like this is because usually they tell us what the utilities are and who the provider is. So that's one of the reasons why I like that property in particular. Excuse me, that document in particular. And then we move on to environmental information. Guys, like I said, this is not a contractual agreement. A lot of times they do not know how to respond to this because they may not know what type of what's if there's any soil settlement or drainage or grade or whatever issues. Like some people don't know or not aware of this. So don't think that they are not lying if they can't respond to this at a 100% you know, with 100% truth, because they may not know what they're disclosing. And if you are a seller, you might not know what is pertinent to the property. So, like I said, disclose what you know, and you can select no if you do not know what's going on with the property. It asks you if you know that if any portion of the property has been flooded, what type of sewer it has, or if it has a septic, et cetera, et cetera. And if there's any additional explanations that you want to write down, the seller usually signs this. If the seller receives an inspection report, and let's just say that you are a seller, you should be updating this after receiving an inspection report, because now you know more about your property and it is helpful to the buyer to know what they are to expect when they are going to purchase a property. Okay, this video is really long now. So I am going to let it go. We use DocuSign to send you a lot of these documents, and or eSign or DigiSign. There's a couple of electronic ways that we can send all the signatures to you. And I wish it was a fun way to make transactions and documents and real estate fun. I know you'll have fun looking at the houses. I know that it's going to get your mind creative and dreaming, and you're going to start looking at Pinterest and Google for all types of things and all types of ways to make a property look nice, depending on the type of availability that there is for properties. But I hope that this video has been informative to you and that you utilize it properly. All the best, and I will see you on another video. Hasta.